Imagine being paralyzed, heartbroken, and abandoned, and then your mother invites 4 strangers into your home. Not to heal you, but to win your heart. Sounds unusual? Now imagine one of them comes for love, and another to steal everything. This isn't just a story about love. It's a story about truth, betrayal, and the quiet strength that changes everything. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from now. Let's jump into the story. Miriam Asay stood by the tall window of her home in the quiet town of Morningside. Outside, the garden was still. Once it had echoed with laughter, music, and the sound of running feet. But those days were now just memories. Her son, Jonan, had not stepped into that garden for almost a year. He was only 27 when the accident happened. A fall from a cliff while on a hiking trip left him paralyzed from the waist down. The doctors said he was lucky to be alive. Jonan did not feel lucky. The once bright young man who led community dances and organized charity drives had become a shadow of himself. Now he stayed in his room, spoke very little, and often refused to even look people in the eye. Worse still, just days after the diagnosis, his fiancée left him. She said she couldn't see a future anymore. Her words had cut deeper than the injury itself. Miriam had found him that night staring at the ceiling, not saying a word, his pillow soaked in silent tears. She tried everything. Doctors, therapists, prayer meetings, even music therapy. Nothing worked. Jonan refused them all. And yet, Miriam refused to give up. On a quiet Sunday morning, she stood outside his bedroom door. She knocked gently. "Jonan," she said softly. "May I come in?" There was silence, then a slow voice answered. "If it's another preacher or some miracle oil, save it." "It's not that," Miriam said, stepping inside. Jonan sat by the window in his wheelchair, headphones in his ears. He didn't look up. Miriam sat across from him and placed a small photo on the table between them. It was a picture of Jonan taken at his university graduation. His smile in that photo was wide and full of hope. "I miss this boy," she said. Jonan glanced at the photo, then looked away. "He's gone," he said. "No," Miriam replied. "He's hiding, and I'm going to bring him back." He sighed. "How exactly? By reminding me of everything I lost?" "No," she said, steadying her voice. "I've invited 4 young women to stay here." Jonan's eyes turned sharp. "What?" "They will be guests here for a few weeks, not nurses, not therapists. Just women who may bring a different kind of light into this house, into your life." His expression darkened. "So I'm a charity case now? A broken man waiting for someone to throw him scraps of affection?" "No, Jonan," Miriam whispered. "You're still a man, still my son, and I believe someone can see you again, really see you." He looked away. "They'll only see the money, not me. But go ahead, Mom. Waste your time." 2 weeks later, 4 young women arrived at the Asay home. First was Senya. She stepped out of the car in high heels and wore a bright, red dress that shimmered in the sun. She smiled for an imaginary camera before entering the house. Her online profile said she was a lifestyle blogger, and her dream was to marry rich and become a brand. Next was Nara, elegant and well-spoken. A radio host in the city, she carried herself like someone used to attention. She greeted everyone with polished grace. Tamira came in with loud laughter and bold energy. She was the kind of woman who filled every room. Born and raised in the city's tougher parts, she was streetwise and confident. The last to arrive was Lena. Her dress was plain. Her shoes were dusty from the village road. She gave a small smile and a polite nod. She said little, but her eyes looked around the house, observing everything quietly. Miriam welcomed them with a warm smile. "You're not here to audition," she told them. "This is not a game show. My son Jonan is hurting, and if any of you can truly connect with him, then you're welcome here. But let me be clear, this house does not reward lies." That evening, Jonan wheeled himself into the living room. The 4 women sat on couches, chatting quietly. When he entered, the room fell silent. He wore a simple shirt. His expression was unreadable. "So," he said slowly, This is the parade of love? Senya laughed nervously. We just wanted to meet you. Jonan turned sharply. I didn't ask for any of this. Let's not pretend. You're all here for one thing. The air grew tense. No one replied. Only Lena whispered, "Good evening," and returned to her book. Jonan's eyes paused on her for a moment. Then he wheeled himself out of the room. Miriam watched from the hallway, her hands clasped tightly. She knew what she was doing was risky, but she believed something beautiful could still grow from brokenness. And so began the most unusual chapter in the Ase house. A quiet house where silence had ruled for months was about to be filled with tests, secrets, and unexpected truths. The morning after their arrival, the four women gathered around the breakfast table in the Ase home. The long dining room was filled with sunlight, and the smell of warm bread and brewed tea floated in the air. Miriam sat at the head of the table, her posture graceful, her eyes observant. Jonan didn't come down. He rarely did. Senya was already on her phone, posting a selfie with the caption, "Healing starts with luxury." Nara made polite conversation with Miriam, asking about her past, her business, and her favorite places to travel. Tamira joked loudly about the mansion's size and asked if she could get a tour of the kitchen for inspiration. Lena ate quietly, her hands resting gently on her lap, her eyes mostly downcast. Miriam noticed everything. After breakfast, the women were shown to their rooms. The house was large, with marble floors, high ceilings, and balconies that overlooked the garden. Each woman had her own space, beautifully decorated. Yet not everyone appreciated the same things. Senya immediately started planning a video tour of the mansion. "I'll title it Dreamhouse Diaries," she whispered to herself, placing her tripod near the window. Nara walked through the halls like she was studying them, nodding at staff and asking the driver about Miriam's past business ventures. Tamira slipped into the kitchen, laughing with the cooks and trying to learn what Jonan liked to eat. Lena went outside. She sat under a mango tree, a book in her hands, and stayed there for hours. Jonan watched all of this from the upstairs window. At dinner that night, the atmosphere was awkward. Jonan didn't speak much, and the women tried too hard to fill the silence. "I made a special prayer list for you," Nara said sweetly, sliding a paper toward him. "How thoughtful," Jonan replied, without emotion. "I've studied healing herbs," Tamira offered. "Maybe you'd like a massage?" He raised an eyebrow. "Herbs and massages. That's your idea of connection?" The room went quiet again. Only Lena remained calm. She didn't speak unless spoken to and never tried to impress Jonan. When dinner was over, she helped the maid clear the table without being asked. The next few days followed a strange pattern. Jonan avoided the living areas. He spent most of his time in the library or in his room. The women continued trying to win his attention, but their efforts slowly began to show their true nature. Senya spent long hours perfecting her makeup, posing in the garden, and tagging her location as Peace Mansion. She often asked the staff to take pictures of her in different outfits. Nara grew closer to the housekeeper, offering gifts and asking about family secrets. She believed knowledge was power, and she wanted control of the game. Tamira flirted with the gardener, danced around the guards, and boasted about how easy it was to win a man's heart with charm and a little drama. Lena's routine never changed. She woke up early, helped in the kitchen, read in the garden, and sometimes joined the gardeners to remove weeds or plant small vegetables. She never asked for attention. She simply did what felt right. Miriam saw it all. She noticed the smiles that disappeared when her back was turned. She saw the hunger in their eyes, not for love, but for something else. On the fourth morning, Miriam called a meeting at breakfast. The women gathered around the table expecting some announcement about Jonan. Miriam stood calmly, her hands folded in front of her. "Starting tomorrow," she said, "each of you will spend 1 hour a day in the garden." Senya blinked. "Doing what exactly?" "Working," Miriam replied, "with your hands. No help, no staff, just you, the soil, and your effort." Tamira laughed. "Sorry, Ma, but we didn't come here to plant yam." "Then you are free to leave," Miriam said simply. But if you stay, you work. The room fell quiet. Lena gave a small nod and continued sipping her tea. The next morning, Lena was the first one out. She wore a loose dress and rubber slippers. She picked up a hoe and began helping an old gardener clear weeds near the mango tree. She didn't complain. She didn't speak much. She just worked. Jonan watched from the upstairs balcony. Something about her made him pause. She was already elbow-deep in soil before the others even showed up. Senya arrived late, wearing sunglasses and gloves, clearly uncomfortable. She took a few pictures, dug half-heartedly, then sat on a bench checking her phone. Nara stood beside the gardener but didn't touch the tools. Her nails remained spotless. Tamira worked for 10 minutes, then started a loud conversation with the guard about fashion and travel. Later that day, Jonan rolled past the garden on his way to the library. Lena was still there, watering plants quietly. Their eyes met. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She just nodded. Inside the mansion, the other women were getting restless. In one room, Senya paced. "That village girl is playing a long game," she said. "She's pretending to be humble." Nara nodded. "She's smart, but I'm smarter. Let her dig yam. I'll dig into Jonan's heart." Tamira laughed. "Una, they waste time. Me? I'll cook, cry small, maybe even pretend to faint. Boom. Ring on my finger." They laughed together, but none of them knew that Miriam had quietly placed audio monitors in each of the guest rooms the day before. She didn't want to judge with her eyes alone. She needed to hear their hearts. Meanwhile, Jonan rolled into the library. He was surprised to find Lena restacking books. "The staff will do that," he said. She looked up, a little startled. "Yes, but it helps me think," she replied. He tilted his head. "Why are you really here?" She hesitated. Then she spoke softly. "I came for the offer, but being here made me realize peace matters more than wealth." Jonan didn't answer. But that night, for the first time in weeks, he slept without needing a pill. The morning sky over the Ase house was quiet, but inside plans were being made. Jonan, who had stayed distant for weeks, finally asked the housekeeper to deliver a message to the 4 women. He wanted to have dinner with each of them, one by one, 4 nights, 1 dinner per guest. When the news reached the women, excitement filled the air. "This is it," Nara whispered to herself. "Operation Wife Material begins. Game on." Tamira grinned. "1 dinner is all I need." Finally, Senya sighed. "Now I can show him who deserves the spotlight." Lena said nothing. She just folded her clothes and continued helping. In the kitchen. On the first night, Senya arrived dressed in a golden gown that shimmered in the candlelight. Her makeup was perfect, her perfume strong. She smiled as she sat across from Jonan. "You look so strong," she said, leaning forward. "There's something beautiful about your strength." Jonan raised an eyebrow. "Is that a compliment or a pitch?" "A little of both," she giggled. Throughout the dinner, she spoke about her brand, her followers, her future dreams of owning a fashion empire. She called Jonan a gift and said being seen with him could inspire thousands. Jonan stayed polite but cold. When the butler cleared the plates, Jonan whispered, "Next time serve less perfume with the rice." On the second night, Tamira showed up in a red dress and bold earrings. She was full of jokes and energy, telling wild stories about her childhood, her hustle, and the many men who had tried and failed to impress her. "But you," she said, leaning close, "you're different. You're real. I like that." Jonan smiled faintly, but his eyes were tired. "Is this the real you or just your show for tonight?" She laughed, pretending to be offended. "Me? I don't act. What you see is what you get." By the end of the meal, Jonan seemed more exhausted than amused. The third night came. Nara arrived in a calm green dress and soft makeup. She carried a handwritten letter and placed it on the table. "I wrote this for you," she said. "It's about healing, about growth." Jonan opened it. The words were beautiful, carefully chosen. He looked up. "You're very good with words," he said. "Thank you," Nara replied. "I believe we all have a purpose." Maybe mine is to walk this path with you. Jonan nodded slowly but didn't say much else. He thanked her for dinner and rolled away before dessert was served. On the fourth night, Lena arrived in a simple, sky blue gown. Her natural hair was tied back and she wore no jewelry. The dinner was set on the terrace, lanterns glowing softly in the evening air. Jonan looked at her as she sat down. "So," he said, "do you always play the saint?" Lena's eyes were calm. "I'm not a saint," she said. "I'm just me. That's all I know how to be." He leaned forward, his tone sharper. "Then why haven't you tried to impress me like the others?" "Because love isn't something to win," she said quietly. "If you see me, you see me. If not, that's okay." Her words unsettled him in a way he didn't expect. No flattery, no charm, just honesty. After the meal, Lena stood to help. "Clear the plates." Jonan stopped her. "You don't have to." "I know," she said with a small smile. "But I want to." As she walked away, Jonan sat still, her words echoing in his mind. Something about her honesty stayed with him. It was gentle, but it shook him deeply. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, things were heating up. Nara had been watching closely. She had seen the way Jonan looked at Lena. It wasn't like the others. It was different. She went to Senya and Tamira's room late that night. "He's starting to like the quiet one," Nara whispered. "That Lena is a problem." "She's playing innocent," Senya hissed. "But she's trickier than she looks." "I say we stop her," Tamira said, cracking her knuckles. "Before it's too late." The next evening, Nara knocked on Lena's door with a smile. "Let's have a girls' night," she said cheerfully. "Just the two of us. I feel like I haven't had a real talk with you." Lena hesitated, but agreed. They sat in Nara's room with a small cake, 2 glasses, and a bottle of what looked like sparkling juice. "It's my birthday," Nara said. "Let's celebrate." Lena smiled. "Happy birthday." Nara poured the drinks and handed one to Lena. "Just a sip," she said. "It's not alcohol." Lena hesitated, then took a few small sips. Minutes passed. Her words became slower. Her cheeks turned pink. Nara turned on a small voice recorder hidden under the table. "Why did you come here?" Nara asked gently. Lena blinked slowly. "For the money," she murmured. "But I changed. Jonan is kind, I like him." "Do you love him?" Nara whispered. "Not love. But maybe something like it," Lena slurred softly. Nara smiled and quietly ended the recording. "Got you," she whispered. The next morning, Nara walked out into the garden where Miriam was trimming the flowers. "Good morning," she said, sweetly. "There's something I think you need to hear." She played the recording. Lena's soft voice filled the air. Miriam listened carefully, her face unreadable. When the recording ended, Miriam looked out at the garden in silence. "See?" she said at last. Later that afternoon, she called all 4 women into the drawing room. Jonan was there too, waiting quietly. Miriam stood before them, her expression calm but firm. "I brought you here to see your hearts," she said. "But this house has eyes and ears, and now I know what each of you has hidden." The room fell, completely silent. The drawing room was silent. The 4 women stood in a line. Jonan sat nearby, his hands folded on his lap, eyes steady but unreadable. Miriam stood in front of them, calm as ever, though something in her eyes had changed. "I brought you here to see who you really are," Miriam began, her voice low and even. "But this house doesn't just listen with ears, it listens with heart, and truth always finds a way." She turned to Senya first. "You came here for fame, not love. Your camera saw more of this house than my son ever did. You called this place a luxury set and joked about pretending. You may leave now." Senya opened her mouth to speak, but Miriam raised her hand. "No words. The guards will help you with your bags." Senya looked around, stunned, then stormed out without another word. Next, Miriam faced Tamira. "You treated this house like a game. You flirted with the staff, played tricks, and spoke of winning with tears and tricks. You're not here for Jonan. You're here for a shortcut. Ma, wait. Tamira began, but the guards were already behind her. She sighed, picked up her bag, and walked out. Then Miriam turned to Lena. You may stay, she said softly, but know this. I heard what you said last night. Lena's eyes widened. She looked toward Nara. She tricked me. I didn't know she was recording. Miriam nodded. Maybe so. But truth spoken in weakness is still truth. Lena looked down, shame and hurt washing over her. Jonan slowly turned his chair toward her. Then to everyone's surprise, he stood up. He walked, unsteady but determined, across the room. Lena gasped. You can walk? Jonan nodded. I started therapy 2 months ago. I kept it quiet. I needed to know who would see me for me, not for pity or money. He took her hand gently. We need to talk. They walked together into the private lounge. The door closed behind them. Lena sat down, her hands shaking slightly. I didn't lie, she said. Not really. Yes, I came here for the money. My younger brother needs surgery overseas. My grandmother has sold herbs in the village for 20 years to feed us. When I saw the offer, I came. But I didn't expect to feel anything. Jonan looked at her closely. Then why did you say you didn't love me? Because I was afraid, Lena whispered. I've never had love before, not like this. I didn't know how to name it. But what I feel, it's real. Jonan nodded. I believe you. I've seen how you move through this house, how you carry yourself, how you never asked for anything but gave so much. I forgive you. Outside the lounge, Nara paced in the hallway, her hands clenched. She had stayed, thinking she had won. Now she was losing everything. She pulled out her phone and called someone. He's choosing her, she hissed. You said they were rich. Is there anything in this house worth taking? A voice on the line said, Anything valuable you can grab, don't leave empty-handed. Nara's eyes moved toward Miriam's study. She knew there was a gold-plated jewelry box on the desk. She had seen it once when the door was left open. That night, while the house was quiet, she crept into the study. She opened the box and stared at the glittering necklaces, rings, and bracelets. Her hands moved quickly, stuffing them into her bag. As she turned to leave, the light switched on. Miriam stood in the doorway. Beside her was Jonan. Looking for a souvenir? Miriam asked. Nara froze. Please, I needed the money. You thought wrong, Jonan said firmly. You didn't just lie, you stole. The guards appeared behind her. She dropped to her knees crying, but no one moved. She was escorted out of the house, her screams echoing into the night. The next morning was peaceful. The garden was quiet. Birds sang softly in the trees. Lena stood on the balcony looking down at the cashew tree. Miriam joined her with a warm cup of tea. Thank you, Lena said, for trusting me, even after everything. Miriam smiled. You remind me of who I used to be before all of this. Strong, honest, grounded. Downstairs, Jonan was busy preparing something. He placed a small wooden box under the cashew tree, the same place where Lena always sat to read. He called her to the garden. She came barefoot, wearing a simple dress. Jonan stood under the tree, holding the box. This spot, he said, changed everything for me. It was here I first saw the real you. Lena looked at him, unsure. He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring with a smooth silver band and a single tiny stone. I don't have grand speeches, he said. But I know what I feel. Lena, will you marry me? Lena's hand went to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times yes. Months later, they were married in the garden, under the same tree. It was a small ceremony. No cameras, no crowds, just family, love, and peace. Jonan walked her down the aisle himself. Miriam cried happy tears as she watched her son, whole again, beside someone who truly saw him. And in the quiet of that moment, love found its loudest voice.